Welcome to WowBiz Nebraska. I'm Lynn Hinderaker. This is a special version, a special edition of WowBiz Nebraska. You've got to grab something, get ready to take some notes because there's going to be a whole unfolding here. Not necessarily just a few tactical trips or some commentary from the sidelines, but really going to get into this because we are at a pivotal moment in our era, so to speak, and in our culture and in our career. And everybody's asking questions. The answers are seldom very helpful. And so we're going to move quickly today. And I promise you this, I am here to help you move to a higher operating level. I'm going to do that in two ways. I'm going to utilize a metaphor that you would come across if you were on a vacation down in Brazil or Venezuela or Peru. In all of those countries, you would come across the rainforest. Now, the rainforest is a very interesting place, as you might know, or at least have heard about. When you enter the rainforest, of course, thousands and thousands of miles, and it's beautiful, and it's quiet, and it has some kind of transformative effect on your psychology, at least for a while. But most importantly is that there's a cycle in the rainforest that relates specifically to our business and all the things that we're trying to do on a daily basis. And that is, it's almost like a manufacturing. For instance, there are animals, as we all know, in the rainforest down in South America. And when they do their thing and there's waste, right, then that gets produced and it generates photosynthesis in all the beautiful flowers and the grass and so on around the jungle area. And photosynthesis transformatively turns into fresh, clean, pure air. All right. So there is a wonderful cycle that we see going on. We see it in our own lives. We do all kinds of different things, but the rainforest really is a great metaphor, and I love metaphors. It seems like people that are particularly skeptical or they think they know everything they need to know, so I'm not interested. But when they hear the metaphor, the right half of their brain clicks in and they go, okay, I get it. I kind of get how the grass and the trees and all that can somehow absorb what the animals are leaving, and then they pull it in, and it's photosynthesis, and it's an incredible and amazing transformational process. Now, it's almost like a manufacturing and distribution process that we have here in our state and in our country and so on. We know roughly that the process works in a different venue, but it works the same way. So anyway, that is a higher operating system. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Also, I'm going to talk with you a little bit about new kinds of high-level leadership. And this is so important, as you all probably know. You've heard again and again, the brain drain problem in Nebraska is worsening. Difficult for us to attract workers of any sort, whether they're hourly workers or, professionals, young professionals. For some reason, right? Some reason they're kind of hung up about what Nebraska is. They don't hate it or dislike it or anything, but it doesn't trip their trigger, so to speak, doesn't turn them on. And there are other opportunities elsewhere and so on. And, we deal with things like the money and the benefits and all that and affordable housing. We put some energy into in most of our markets here in our state. But there's something missing. And I'm going to share that with you right now, ladies and gentlemen. It is what I call the fusionary secret to attracting and retaining, getting the mentality. Now, we're talking about the thinking process now, not necessarily coming and doing the work in the factory or whatever and going home and getting your paycheck every 2 weeks and going, wow, this is the good life. I don't think it's going down, at least psychologically, that way. See? So I'm going to chat about that, even though I was going to save this towards the back end of the show, but it's so powerful. Now, here's the deal. We all know that when a manager or a supervisor or a CEO of a company here in Nebraska, they have different strategies. They have different things they want to get done, the production, distribution, get it out there, bring in the trucks, et cetera, all whatever it takes. But there's a whole lot of things going on systemically that are external, right? They're external to the boss and external to all the people. Sometimes it's going well, sometimes it's not. And so they can sit around and they can talk about how do we make the system work better? How can we make it a little more efficient over here in this department, et cetera. We've all heard that kind of thing. What we're running into when you sit down with these young people, and I'm going to say Gen Z, but also Gen Y, really, and you ask them, how are you doing? What's going on with your career? How do you feel about your life and your existence right here in Nebraska and so on? And they will pause and they will think, because they have to be kind of careful. And they'll say, it just doesn't mean much to me. If I had to walk away tomorrow, I really wouldn't regret it that much. I say, well, what would change that? Why would you say such a thing? Everybody else over here is working so hard and they're trying to keep their money and their job and you're telling me, and many people like you, by the way, are saying, well, I don't know, it's okay. This guy kind of bugs me over there, so I'm going to leave here shortly if he ever comes around again, that's for sure. And my boss, is he a leader? I don't know if he's a leader. He has orders and he comes and reveals them to me, and then we try to do what he says. But, is that leadership? Does the guy know me? Nah, he doesn't know me. And so it wouldn't be any loss for him and any loss for me if I went and got another job, made another $10 an hour or $5 or whatever. So this is what we have in front of us. We have a problem with meaning, right? Above and beyond. So that's an internal thing. Really, what we're talking about is the psychology and how it feels to be in this state, working for the people that are running our companies and so on. And so this is really the issue. What we really have now, if I were to call up somebody in Des Moines, Iowa, and I would say, we've got a situation over here in Omaha. I think you would appreciate it. I'm going to send somebody over there to pick you up so you don't have to spend a lot of money driving them. We'll bring you over here and, put you up for a day or whatever it is you want. But I kind of would like you to reflect and respond to what these employers are saying. All right? And they go, okay, well, I could take a day off and come over there. Might be okay, might be good. Now, what they are looking for right now, right? They're going to come over here and they're nice to meet you, have a seat, we'll be with you in a minute. And so what they're getting is a lot of the external situations, all the tools, the aptitudes, the things that are happening, the calendar. It's all kind of external. But when you talk about the other part of their life, and by the way, it's a pretty important part of their life, and that is what they would call the internal part of their life. How do you feel about who you are and whether you can evolve? Now we're getting close here. You can evolve into the human being that you were meant to be. Now, I have to tell you, there's a lot of smart business executives and CEOs here in this beautiful state, but I don't think any of them would say or would be inclined to say what I just said to this person that I'm talking to. And that is the issue right there. These young people feel with AI coming on, some are excited about it, of course. Some are really worried about it, afraid they're going to get just pushed out and the AI will replace them and so on. So it's not going to matter anyway. It's kind of what's going through their head. So they're looking for a leader. Now, could be in the economic development department, could be in the city planning area and so on. Or it could just be somebody at the local business or office or whatever. But they're looking for somebody who can share with them two different perspectives interchangeably. This is what we do over here. We got to ship the product on time and so on and so forth. But we can also be a more interesting and a better human being as a result of whatever, whatever it is. How you relate to people, what things you join outside the office, how you complain or talk to me about your life that you're unhappy with, whatever it is. But there's an internal dimension to our lives, which in the past, nobody in the business world ever even discussed it. That's not a factor. I don't want to hear about that. If you want to go see a psychotherapist or go to church, whatever it is you want to do, go right ahead. But we've got work to do today. See? And that's okay, but that's kind of old school. That's old school management. That's not the way normally if you ask these young people, what is the magnet that would get you over here, that would it would make you feel great coming into Nebraska? And I think many of them would say, well, I don't know how to explain this exactly, but it's this concept of, that you want to make me a better person, I guess is what I'm really trying to say. I want to be a better person when I'm over here. Not a richer person necessarily, but I want to be what I was born to be. And I don't know what that is. I have no clue, but as I look around this factory or this distribution center, I don't think this is going to give me the answer to my so-called identity issue. And by the way, that's kind of what I am. I am an architect of identity. I help people try to find exactly who they are, who they want to be. And of course, then they'll surround themselves with products and services, things they buy, the car that kind of represents them, or the clothing that they kind of utilize to kind of help them refine and define who they are or who they're trying to become. So this is a complex topic, I know. It makes many business leaders, CEOs and so on, uncomfortable, board of directors, uncomfortable. They don't talk about this kind of thing at all. But now, see, we're in kind of I want to say a desperate situation, and we can't seem to get anybody to come over to Nebraska and stay. We're losing, in effect, about 4,500 workers every year. We need about 24,000 total workers here in the state of Nebraska, because we've got all these jobs, we've got these companies and so on. They want to produce and distribute their stuff, but there just isn't enough people that I can train and trust to show up and, get the job done. And so we can make our profit here, pay our taxes, and move forward, So that is the dilemma. And I'm going to put a word on it. I'm going to use this word fusionary. All right. Some people would say, well, that's integration. Other people would say, well, I don't know. It's like an internal thing. See, that's what I'm talking about right now. And that's very unusual for a business person to talk about strategy on the one hand, and then to talk about self-concept or imagery, or not being confident about who you are, or how you can actually do something for somebody other than doing the basic job in the factory or in the office. So this is the agenda. If we could talk the way I'm trying to talk right now, we could attract maybe thousands from Iowa, Kansas, Minnesota, South Dakota, because this is what these generations are really looking for. And I call it, again, it's fusionary. It's balanced. We do both. We help you in multiple ways. Now, the HR department's going, don't put this on us because we don't know anything. We're just pushing paper back here, getting our paycheck. But this is the essence of what we have here in the state of Nebraska right now. We don't know how to appeal to the people that we want here. We just want them to show up and go do the job and be happy. And that's not how these generations are going to be. They'll work hard, of course, but what they really want is a new sense of who they are, why they're here, and what they are capable of, so that they can have a goal. Right? Stand for something. Have a purpose. All right. I'm Lynn Hinderaker with WowBiz Nebraska. We will scooch away right now and talk with our promotional sponsor. I'll talk to you very soon again. Thanks so much. A company called Nebraska Now supports WowBiz Nebraska. We thank them for that. If you're wondering, how should I get involved? What do I do? Is Nebraska Now worth my time? I'm going to tell you 10 things that Nebraska Now will be focusing. They'll be talking about new context. They'll be talking about new technology. That's a big one. They'll be talking with you about new value, how it applies to your company. They'll be talking about new branding, also new markets, right? And then, of course, new kinds of work. They're also wrapping up here. They want to be able to help you understand new talent, how to evaluate them. There's a new mandate, a new form of excellence. And then finally, new trend awareness, right? What's happening around us that's changing our business? What should we be doing or not doing? And then finally, very importantly, is new community, right? New community service, new community support. And these are 10 key points so that somebody goes, wow, I had no idea. All right, there we are. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you soon. Thank you again, Nebraska Now. I'm Lynn Hinderaker. Welcome back to WowBiz Nebraska. Thank you for staying with us here. We've got so much to share with you, as you probably gather, whether it's our promotional sponsor or all the different ways that management and business is changing. It's an exciting time for everyone, and we're here to make sure that you make the choices and the right decisions for your company at this point in the process. You know, somebody said, well, there's so much to think about, you know, how do you narrow it down? I'm going to talk to you about 5 key points here as we move into the back end of WowBiz Nebraska. The first one is so incredibly important and difficult, by the way, to articulate and decide upon and share it, and that is vision. That is vision. Now, it's not purpose, it's vision. How you see the company evolving, what we're trying to become, how we should operate together, how people should be talking about our vision, whether you get people together at lunch and you sit down and chat a little bit more about what is the vision and is this vision really reachable and what do we have to do to get there and so on. Very, very interesting. All the other strategies and tactics are pressed down so that we can really get a handle on what the vision is and what the vision should be going forward. So vision, number one. But now we get to the bigger conversation, right? Where everybody gets involved, and that is core beliefs, right? If your vision is this, then what are your core beliefs? What's going to kind of support the vision, And it could be several of them, and you don't want them to crisscross each other or fight against each other. So somebody could say core beliefs, we're going to measure what we do frequently and not be afraid to make adjustments if we're not accomplishing our goal the way we measure output. Fine. There's one core belief. All right. So let's keep going. We're going to test the people who apply to work with us. We're going to test them in some different ways, some unusual ways. For instance, besides all the average stuff and background, resume, and all that stuff, we're going to have some kind of a creative exercise. And we want to see how they respond or deal with right brain kinds of dialogues and what that means, or if they completely ignore all that. Because we do want an ongoing infusion of creative ideas. We don't want anybody to feel bad about it or negative or put down or embarrassed. Ideas are so important. They are the fuel of our business. And so we want to make sure that's another core belief, that people are welcome to submit ideas, and we'll have reasonable conversations about many of them. That's just a couple examples, by the way. Another one, core beliefs, is that if people are flying and they're leaving their family behind and they're doing work out in the field or whatever, one of our core beliefs is these people need to be given a lot and taken care of, and extra money to take care of when they're out in the field. And we want them to enjoy the process of getting out there, talking to the customers and the employees and so on. That's a core belief. We're not going to skimp with those people that go the extra mile. All right, here might be another interesting core belief. We need to be forming new relationships all the time, trade shows, that kind of an environment, because that's where the real action is. That's where the people we want to talk to are. And so we don't want to cut back there either. We want to have a nice looking booth. We want to make sure the people that we're hanging around throughout the entire facility, not just sitting around on a chair in our exhibit. That would be another example of a core belief, because we know that there is the action in this big convention hall, and we got to tap into it now. Much easier now than to do it on the phone later on. Anyway, those are 4 examples of core beliefs, and people have to sit around and talk about it, because you can't have everything. You got to give up one thing or another. So there we are. Now the third one would be knowledge. right? So it seems obvious, but yet on the other hand, in almost every industry, there's new information, new data, new trends, new knowledge. What does this mean to us? What if they did that? Do we need to come over here and do this? Let me think about that. We need more knowledge about this particular person who's calling the shots. Who's going to go find something out on this guy over here, the leader there? Well, you see, this goes on and on. It's exciting, really. I mean, this is what the business is. All right. Let's go on with strengths. Now, this is something, if your company is doing really well right now, you assume that you're strong and, it doesn't even come up. We're good at that, so, hey, good for us, right? But most companies evolve because people come and go, departments become strong and powerful or become weak, and so our strengths we have to be clear about what they are, and then we try to leverage those strengths. There's a lot of people out there that they like that word leverage, really. It implies power, authentic power to be sure. So that's also a very, very important thing, is to know what our collective strengths are. And if it comes down to the boss and his right-hand man, we have to know how they are strong, how they negotiate at the table in behalf of us. All that kind of stuff, that's a very important point, right? A lot of people work their way out of weakness. They're obsessed with weakness. They want that to go away, of course. But leveraging your existing strengths is more productive and will generate revenue faster than trying to cover up your weaknesses. Finally, the strategic plan. This is the fifth of our 5 things that most people go, I just need to kind of bring it down. What should I be working on? What are we looking at right there? How should I spend my time? So number 5 of the group that we're talking about right here is a strategic plan. Now, in a lot of organizations, the boss and maybe one other person try to grind out a strategic plan. They think of it as a budget exercise mostly, and that's reasonable. But it doesn't, how do I say this? It doesn't open up to new strategic ideas. Most of the time, it's last year's strategic plan. We pull it over and we look at it, we move around some money a little bit, and this department needs this, and this department needs that, and so on. There we are, put it up there on the shelf, we're good. That's not a strategic plan. And it is throwing away one of the most important, most valuable things that you have. It's almost like having a platform built out of solid wood, and you step up on the platform, you're about 3 inches above the floor, and you're higher, you're taller, you see a little further, and you don't worry, you're more confident, right? You don't worry about what comes next because we have a strategic plan. And maybe there's a couple of elements there that are like axles in a moving machine. Like if we get to this and then we don't get the response, fine. Then our plan will be this. We'll go over here and we'll slip this in. We'll use our pricing leverage and we'll get something out over on this end over here. Is that good? Yeah, everybody comfortable with that? All right. So that's one component in our strategic plan. The plan has to be something that even mid-level people will go, can you tell me a little bit more about that one part right there? I'd like to maybe be a part of that sometime, and I just want to know more about it. So it should be a living, breathing document, not just something that the boss and his assistant have sitting on a shelf somewhere. But that is what happens. Now, as you get through all 5 of these points, you want to have a meeting of sorts and bring people in maybe on Saturdays or after work or something like that, serve some sandwiches, and really get people to relax for a little bit and start talking through all the 5 key points that I've just made, right? And of course, you have to begin with vision, right? And then the core beliefs that go into the vision. This is, by the way, when somebody in the back is going to go, well, I think they're okay, but you're missing this or that, You got a good vision, but don't you want to do this as well? Well, maybe so, right? That's a good time. That's a good time to think about that, talk about that. And then knowledge. There'll be people saying, I usually am considered pretty knowledgeable in this department and in this company and so on, but it seems like the world is moving past me and I can't keep up with all the different technology tweaks and all that. Is there anybody that can chat with me or help me or set up a department where I can get some quick learning there, or somebody I trust can teach me how I need to do more of this over here and less of that? Sure, that's not a bad idea. We want to, if anything, we want to be knowledgeable, maybe more knowledgeable than the competitors that we're dealing with. But then there's another component to it, right? Which is the emotional component, the heart and soul piece. And this is where many companies are weak. They don't know what it means. They don't know how to go from A to B on this track, so to speak. And heart and soul is what the next generation wants to see from the existing employer and the boss, of course, is that they're doing something that actually serves the community, right? Or actually helps people that are entire company and helps them get through, whether it's some problem at home or a family or money or whatever it is, right? That's the heart and soul. That's why people say, you really should stay here because these people they care, they just care. And then you can get better and better at what you do, but most importantly, it's very important that you are around people that give a gosh darn about you, your family, your children, how the kids are doing in school and so on. That's very rare, very rare. So I'm just mentioning these things here so that it's not some intellectual exercise. I've been through many of these processes and many of these plans, and sometimes you have to come back for a second meeting again because the feedback has been helpful, even riveting. So that's what you want to do: vision, core beliefs, knowledge, strengths, and a strategic plan, ladies and gentlemen. Now you know what to do. Early in our show, of course, we talked about metaphors and how all of the transformation that goes on in the jungle in South America, and how it relies or somehow reminds us of how we are trying to run our companies, because there is transformation going on. And then finally, are leaders thinking with both the left and the right brain? Do they have a focus on becoming a better human being? I'm Lynn Hinder with WowBiz Nebraska. You're with me. We will see you soon. This is an outstanding show. Thanks very much. We'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.